Welcome to the Color of Influence podcast, where you will hear conversations from influential people of color from around the world, from social media, and right here in your communities. These behind-the-scenes conversations will motivate you, inspire you, and encourage you. I am your host, Aisha Morgan, and let's meet today's guest. Welcome back to the podcast. Today is February 8th, 2023, and it is my birthday. That's right, y'all. It is my birthday. If you are on YouTube, I'm going to show y'all one of my birthday shirts that I had made during COVID. Microphone. It says, "A queen was born in February." And then it has my actual year, 1981, on my shirt. That's right. Today is my birthday. And I'm super excited for y'all to hear today's episode. So today is actually a replay of my episode with Akeem, who is the founder and CEO of the Flipstik. You guys hear me talk about this product all the time. I currently have a Flipstik on the back of my phone. It is amazing. I rave about it because it really is a great product. But the reason why I wanted to do a replay of his episode is because he has a Kickstarter campaign, and today, February 8th, is the last day to make a pledge to his Kickstarter. He has some amazing products that he is rolling out through this Kickstarter. One of them being an updated Flipstik called the Flipstik Pro, and with other products that go along with it. I'm super excited to get my products. Yes, of course, I made my pledge so that I can get products in advance and at a discount, and you can too. So you have to go to Kickstarter. The campaign is Flipstik Pro phone accessory, mount, stand, and grip. So when you go to Kickstarter, you're going to just type in the Flipstik, and all of it, the information will come up. You can also go to their Instagram page or their website and check it out. If you guys want to know if people are actually doing this pledge, they absolutely are. So he wanted $10,000, and he is currently at $14,446,000 with 352 pledges. So well on his way, exceeded his goal, and I'm super excited to see just how far he goes past this point. He was in Target, he is now in Best Buy, and I believe he is in another store, but I cannot remember which store it is, so I apologize for that. But I also wanted to replay his story because I'm kind of at a transition and trying to figure some things out. And when I remembered Akeem's story, it definitely got me motivated to keep doing what I'm doing and stay the course, because he was not an overnight success. He had lots of ups and downs, and there were so many reasons why he could have given up, and he didn't. So I hope you guys enjoy his story. And yeah, go make a pledge to his Kickstarter. You will not regret it. I'm telling you, an upgrade of this product that is already good. I can't wait to see it. So here we go with Akeem with the Flipstik, his episode from the Color of Influence podcast. All right, everybody. Welcome back to the podcast. We have an amazing guest today. I went, and you guys know I follow Target While Black, and I am all things that she posts. One of the products she posts was the Flipstik. It is a that's right, goes on the back of your phone. You can use it to crop your phone up if you have like videos that you want to watch, and it sticks to any surface, y'all. And we are so excited to have Akeem, who is the founder of Flipstik, on the podcast.
It is. Listen, no, I'm excited to be here. I feel here. So thank you for having me. I'm really just excited to get into it, answer any questions, and maybe inspire the next person to drop their product into a target.
Absolutely. That is our goal. So why don't you tell the people a little bit about yourself and we'll get right into our conversation.
Yeah, so as you mentioned, my name's Akeem. I was born and raised in St. Louis, Missouri. I came up with the idea for Flipstik around 4 years ago. Now, coming up on 4 years ago. And basically it all started with a late night phone call from my uncle, who's an engineer at NASA. He's telling me about this project he was working on for the space launch system and how he's going to use this adhesive in this project. And I had recently mounted my TV on the wall, and so I'll be honest, it took me a lot longer than I care to admit. But I was like, man, if I had this special NASA adhesive, I could have saved myself a whole lot of time.
Yeah.
And while the TV never happened, a little tiny TV, I said, you know what? I think we could actually make that work. And that's really where the whole idea and concept for Flipstik came about. And from there, I taught myself to write patents. I taught myself to do a trademark, went on Kickstarter, like all kinds of stuff that I'm sure we'll get into.
Yes. So you have this idea, right? And it sounds simple enough. You just have this adhesive that you want to put on the back of a phone, but we all know that nothing is simple. Right. So how did you go from the concept to the product?
Yeah, so honestly, I will say it's simpler today than it's ever been. I'm not gonna say it's the simplest thing, but it's simpler than it's ever been. So for me, I knew. Are you familiar with the story of the guy who created GoPro?
Yeah.
Okay, so for your listeners out there who may not know, GoPro is a really popular little action camera. They sell it in every store in the world, worth billions of dollars. And this guy was a surfer, and he knew nothing about creating products. He just knew he went surfing, and he had no footage to show for it. And so he came up with this concept of what if he could have a camera for his surfboard. Right. And the way it is, he went to Best Buy, he bought a little Sony point and shoot camera. He went to the acrylic store, took the acrylic, super glued it together, duct taped it, and he mailed it off to China. And he said, hey, I want to make a camera that's waterproof that somewhat resembles this.
Yeah.
That's where GoPro was born. Was an engineer, didn't know a whole lot. He just was a surfer that wanted to capture his footage. And he grew that into a multi-billion-dollar company. Yeah. So knowing this, going back 4 years, I'm like, hey, I can just figure out how to make a crude version of my product. And I did. It was literally just cardstock and double-sided tape. It didn't really work the way I imagined it, but I'm like, if I get the right stuff, it'll work.
Yeah.
And I took pictures, videos, and I emailed them, to several manufacturers in China. And that's literally how I got started. I just searched for manufacturers that I knew were making like reusable adhesive products. So things like command hooks and stuff like that.
Okay.
And I just reached out, and that's how everything got going.
Now, how do you do that though? Because someone else said the same thing to me, not on the podcast, but that they looked up manufacturers who were making, this athleisure wear. So she knew they had the material. But what did your Google search look like?
Yeah, so really, honestly, you can skip Google nowadays. There's a couple of major platforms that, will aggregate almost anyone in China, and honestly in a lot of countries that are manufacturers, right? So there's a couple of them, like one is called madeinchina.com. Another one, which is the biggest in the world, is called Alibaba. So some people may have heard of like AliExpress. That's kind of like their Amazon version that they make, but their big business is actually Alibaba.com. And that is a shopping site for manufacturers. So you literally go on there and you can buy stuff that's pre-made, right? You can buy it wholesale, but you can also get anything custom made, any type of product made from the manufacturers that are on that site. And that's the best, least expensive place to start. Now, there are rep groups in China where you can contact a rep group and then they'll source and find factories for you, which is what we do now. But that costs a little bit more money. You're going to pay a little bit more of a premium. So where I got started was just right on Alibaba.com, and that carried us for, almost 3 years.
Okay. Now, just to backtrack, what is your background before you started this?
Yeah, so, I don't really have like an engineering background, but my father was an entrepreneur, right? So growing up, I knew it was possible to be like, to work for yourself, to make enough money to make ends meet. And for a
Yeah.
lot of people, that's very scary, right? It scares them to think like, oh, I don't know if I can do this. But for me, it was almost the opposite, where I was like, man, working a job every day,
Yeah.
tell someone when I want to go on vacation, that's crazy. Like, why would I want to do that? So that's kind of where I was coming from. But, as I mentioned, I grew up here in St. Louis. I went off to Howard University, the real HU.
Okay.
Had a full scholarship and went to study chemical engineering. But when I got there, I realized, oh, I hate chemistry. This chemistry stuff is not for me. And so I did not have the best grades, and I actually ended up losing my scholarship. It was really hard. I lost my scholarship at Howard, had to come home, and I really had to restart. And so the way I did that was I started working in a Sprint retail store. So I was just selling cell phones and cell phone accessories.
Yeah.
From there, I went to work for Verizon, but not in a cell phone store, but in a call center, selling like their FiOS service, which is basically like their cable, internet, TV type package service. And that's when I really, between both of those jobs, I really learned how to sell products, at least on a short sales cycle. And I was very good at it. I was always great at just talking to people, and I got even better, having that job.
Yeah.
And so, when I was at Verizon, like I remember I was like the top rep. They had this thing called Rockstar where they're trying to find the Verizon Rockstar who could like pitch their products the best. I ended up winning that like in Miami at this big hotel, like all kinds of crazy stuff. But
yeah,
I realized even though, I was doing well at these jobs, I was making good money, I wasn't super fulfilled. But I had reached an important goal for myself, because after that failure of losing my scholarship for college, like I came back and I'm like, I have to turn it around. I went to a pretty like, prestigious preppy high school where a lot of the kids that went there, parents made a lot of money. And I knew that in 4 years, they were going to graduate, they're going to have great jobs. And I was a kid, on scholarship, and I'm like, I can't be a deadbeat. So over the course of those 4 or 5 years after I, came home from Howard, I just saved and just worked really hard. And, even though I realized I didn't really want to work in corporate America anymore, by the time I left my job at Verizon, I had saved over $90,000.
Wow.
Yeah, $90,000. And that was just savings, and it was in my 401k and just like investments. But that was over like 4 years.
Wow.
Right. So it was really just being like very diligent of like, I'm not spending money. Like I got to save, I got to do this. And so I ended up quitting my job and for a while worked in like, I worked for a political candidate like in town, and did some other stuff. And I was planning on starting a business, but then I got a call from Square. I think they're called Block Inc. now. They make Cash App and register and that kind of stuff. And they were starting a sales team here in St. Louis. It was going to be their second office. And I always wanted to work for a tech company, and tech companies have great benefits. They give you free lunch every day, unlimited vacation.
Yeah.
They got snack bars and all kinds of great stuff. So who could say no to that? So I ended up working at Square, which was honestly the best experience I could have, because I truly believe that no matter where you are in your life and what job you have, your job, if you work for someone that can afford to pay you, that's a successful business.
Yeah.
And so you have a lot you can learn from that business. And really, the way I like to look at things is you're getting paid to learn. Like if you're at a job, you're getting paid to learn how their business works.
Right.
So throughout all the big companies that I worked at, especially at Square, working with small entrepreneurs all the time, which is their main business.
Right.
I just picked up a lot. And so about after a year and a half, I realized that as great as it was working there, I still just wasn't happy there. And I was like, man, I want to do my own thing.
Yeah.
And so I ended up leaving and taking all that knowledge that I gained over, 6 years since college or so, and took it into starting Flipstik.
And I always feel like everything happens for a reason.
It does.
The classroom was not where you needed to learn.
Bingo.
So you said 6 years, 6 years. That's how long people are usually in college, 4, 5, 6 years. So yours was just, you were getting paid instead of paying somebody else.
That's exactly right.
So who's really the smarter ones?
Right. You know what I'm saying? Like, but it's so true. And I tell people, like, if you want to be a chef and you want to run a restaurant, go work for McDonald's, because no one's going to show you how to run a restaurant more efficiently and make as much profit as possible as working at the most profitable restaurant in the history of the world.
Yeah.
Like, there's so much more you're going to learn there than you're going to learn anywhere else. Even if the food's not great, the business side of
Part,
it
yeah.
here is second to none. So no, I'm a big believer in that. And like, one of the reasons that the way we had our first success at Flipstik is we opened up a mall kiosk where we sold Flipstik in the mall, which, knowledge would tell you, oh, the malls are dead. You need to go online, Instagram, social media. That's the way to do it. But I didn't know those things, but I didn't know how to talk face to face to someone and sell them a phone accessory, because I learned that working at Sprint. And so when we had our kiosk, we ended up being the most successful kiosk in the region. And we made over $30,000 in 2 months. First 2 months. At the mall, and we had all these people like, oh, open up a kiosk in our mall, but that really came from me really understanding how that worked, because I did that job, and so I knew how to be successful at it.
That's awesome. So from your card stock with your double stick tape, you mailed off your prototype. Where did you go from there?
Yeah, so, the first thing we did was Kickstarter. For those unfamiliar with Kickstarter, basically it's a platform where you can show off your idea, your product, a company, whatever idea you have, but be it creative or product or whatnot, you can show it off and people essentially pre-order it from you, right? They'll give you the money ahead of time for you to collect that money and go and make whatever it is you want to make. And what's great about that is you don't have to give up any equity when you use a site like Kickstarter. Another popular one's Indiegogo. And it's a great way to, one, prove that your idea can actually sell and someone's willing to pay for it. And two, to not have to get any type of loans, or if you don't have any capital to get started, it's a great way to get started. Now, as I mentioned, for me, I had a lot of money saved up, but when I first quit my job, originally I was going to do marketing. So I started doing some marketing stuff and I was like, I don't really like this either. And so then I'm like, you know what, in order to get marketing clients, maybe I should, it's kind of convoluted, but maybe I should create my own product to market. And then if I market this well, I can get more clients. Yeah. So that was like a thinking process, because I had this idea and I'm like, oh yeah, I should do this idea. And when I set up Kickstarter, I set the goal really low. It was like $1,800, hardly anything. But I was like, if I can even sell this much, I was only selling them. I had them really low because it's pre-order pricing. But I was like, if I could even sell this many, like this would be worth pursuing. Like this proves that people will make it. And I poured a lot of energy into this. Like I bought a drone, I bought cameras, I edited the video myself. I did all the graphics for the Kickstarter page. Like I put a lot into this to make it look really, really good. And I remember the first day we launched, I went into we call it St. Louis Bread Co. here, but it's actually called Panera everywhere else. St. Louis. So if you live in St. Louis, they all say St. Louis Bread Co. because that's where it got started. It's a fun tip. But I was inside of Panera and, we hit the live button, it goes live, and then just and we ended up making, over the course of 30 days, we made around $15,000.
What?
Pre-sales.
Wow. And your goal was only 1,500.
Yeah. So when that happened, that immediately, like that spark where I was like, no, I'm dedicated full time to this. And I did. So that was April of 2018. And then we ended up actually shipping in September of 2018. But then I was stuck again because I was like, okay, what do I do next? And that's when we started doing like events. We went to like the African Arts Festival and the International Food Festival and all these festivals to like sell Flipstiks hand to hand.
Yeah.
And eventually we're like, man, this is kind of working. First day we made like $200, then 300, then 400, then 500. And we're like, how can we do this every day? And that's how we ended up at the mall. And we almost didn't go there because I was so terrified. The rent at the mall was like $2,500 a month for a kiosk. And I'm like, man, this is a lot of money. Like, what if this doesn't work out?
Yeah.
To this point, we've only sold $15,000 worth of Flipstik. So 2,500
Right.
seems like a lot. It was one of those pivotal moments where, I had to just walk right up to that fear and just say, you know what, I'm not going to listen and I'm just going to push right through.
Yeah.
And I began to learn over and over, like, that was really the key to success is you're going to come up against these walls of fear and doubt all the time. You're going to hit lows, you're going to hit highs, but it's like, you got to keep pushing past all of those hurdles in order to achieve anything worth achieving.
That's so true. Now, how did you pick like your manufacturer though? Because you sent it to China to different people.
So
you have to go to China?
I did not go to China. I still have not been to China.
Okay.
And really, it was just who delivered, right? Because we paid several people to make us prototypes and, make those first runs. And one person paid them, they gave us nothing. And one person we paid them and they gave us junk. And one person we paid them and they gave us exactly what we asked for. And that's who became our manufacturer. Simple as that. And the thing is, on any type of entrepreneurial journey, you're going to lose money. Yeah. And to be honest, if you don't lose a lot of money, you're probably not making a lot of money, because what I've learned is the more you make, then you lose more, and then you make more, and then you lose more, and then you make more. I remember I was listening to, I think it was Jamie Foxx, saying about how he had spent like $50,000 paying somebody to decorate his home with like lights for Christmas, and they just ripped him off, and the next year he got it for like $2,000. And I was like, Jesus. I was like, he lost 50 grand. And he's just like, that's just the cost of being successful. Yeah. And it's true. Like, as you become more successful, sometimes you get ripped off. It is what it is. You just got to keep pushing forward. But yeah, I mean, we went through some bad manufacturers, but we found a good one. And like I said, we stuck with them for quite a while, basically until we launched in Target. We stayed with that same manufacturer, and they just eventually, couldn't deliver the requirements of some like big box retail stores where they just have a lot more compliance. Volume, but also just compliance and hitting deadlines. And
okay, got it. Okay,
they want to make sure that it's been inspected properly and those kind of things. And so, eventually we did move on, but like I said, they carried us through Shark Tank, all that kind of stuff. So yeah.
Y'all see how he glazed over Shark Tank.
Oh.
Now you got to tell us how you got on Shark Tank.
Okay, I'll tell you. So, as I mentioned, we did the event. We went to the mall. We had the kiosk. Yeah. We were really successful. And someone invited us to go to CES, which is the Consumer Electronics Show that they have in Las Vegas every year. Okay. Big show. 150,000 people. Every major electronics company, Microsoft, Sony, Samsung, they all come out there and spend a ton of money to have this big conference. Yeah. So we went out, we went out and had a booth, and we won a couple contests, and Shark Tank was accepting pitches there. And so we waited in line, we did the pitch, it went great. And then we started moving through the process. We sent the videos in, we talked to the producers, all this good stuff. And we got down to maybe like the final 200 people, it's like, and they pick around 120 people per season. Mm-hmm. And so we're like to the final 200, they're like, we're going to let you know in the next few days if you're moving forward or not. We have a few more people we have to cut. And I'm just so sure. I'm like, we're definitely going through. We had a great pitch. They liked me. Like, this is going to be it. And I got a phone call and they were like, we're sorry, you're not going to be on the show.
Oh.
And it was devastating. Like it hurt really bad. But, I knew this was just like when I was afraid at the mall. I was like, man, this is one of those times where I got to push through. And so that's exactly what I did. I knew that while I just had to accept like this defeat, like I knew it couldn't be the end. I had to push through. But I'm someone who I believe in plan A, no plan B. And when plan A fails, all right, it's time for a new plan A. So I had to get my new plan A together. And for me, I was like, you know what? I think I need a celebrity investor. Like I need a celebrity to come in and just help me. Because at the time I was really like, money was tight. I didn't know if I should go back to the mall. Like I didn't know what to do next.
Yeah.
And I was looking, I was like, you know what? I think I need to get Jay-Z to invest in Flipstik. Like that's what I need to do. And then I was like, you know what? Beyonce and Jay-Z, they never come out the house. Let me find somebody who actually is like seen out in public. So I was browsing Instagram and I saw that Diddy was having an event for the Revolt Summit. And it was going to be in Atlanta. It was like this music conference, but they had a pitch competition. I said, great, I'm going to go to Atlanta. I'm going to pitch my business. I'm going to get Diddy to invest. Boom, we got it.
Yeah.
So I booked my plane ticket. I paid for a VIP pass. It was $500, and $500 was a lot for me. So I was like, okay, I'm just going to walk on faith and we're going to make this happen. But then I find out the pitch competition is closed. It's already booked up. And I've already booked my tickets. I'm like, all right, I got to figure something out, Akeem. And I saw that they also had a music competition where they were going to give away a record deal. So I said, I took music appreciation in high school. I can rap. I'll just rap my pitch for Flipstik.
Oh, that's so smart.
And I didn't tell anybody about this plan because you don't want to tell somebody, oh, yeah, I'm going to rap my pitch to Diddy and get him to invest in my pitch. That does not, I don't think anyone would get an A in Entrepreneurship 101 on their first MBA class with that, that thesis. But, I was like, this is the plan. I'm going to do it. So I wrote my rap. I went to an open mic night here in town, did it. People were like, oh, that was dope. That was great. I said, okay, yeah, I got this. I can do this. And so I went down to Atlanta. And when I tell you, I faced so many setbacks just trying to even be able to do this. Like I wanted to do I had my rap ready, but then they were like, if you haven't submitted a video by midnight, you can't do it. It's like 11:50. So I'm like, oh, I gotta submit a video. So then finally they got my video. They're like, okay, you get to actually perform and try out. So then I did the tryout and they're like, oh, it was great. They loved it. They were like, this is amazing. You just wrapped your business to us. But then they disqualified me because they said I wasn't a real artist. And it was just like one thing after another. But I went into this event saying like, no matter what happens, like this entire setup is for me to succeed. Like there's no other reason for this to be happening and going on for me to succeed. I'm a big believer in the law of attraction. For people who know what that is, like I'm a big believer in creating your own reality and believing that you can do something before it happens. And that belief and your action together help to create the reality that you see. Mm-hmm. And so I was like, I got to make it work. So later that evening, there was a comedy show at the same event. DC Young Fly was on stage cracking jokes. And I just had my Flipstiks in my hand. I was VIP, so I'm front row. Yeah. And I just stand up and I have my Flipstiks in the air and I just hold them up. And he just looks at me. And I don't know if you allow cursing on this show, so I'll use them.
It's fine.
You do a little curse, okay? Yeah, so he's like, nigga, what you trying to sell? And I'm like, that's all I needed. I give him a full stick, and he's like, well, can I stick to an ass? Can I stick it to my girl's ass? That's what I want to know. So he starts cracking all these jokes about the Flipstik. And then next thing I know, the whole comedy show's derailed. People are coming up, showing them their latest album and their shirt company they make. And it becomes this whole like pitch thing. And finally this rapper comes up and he's like, yo, I got a rap. And they let him on stage to rap. And I'm like, yo, I have a rap. And they're like, oh man, the Flipstik guy thinks he can rap. He gonna come up here and embarrass himself. We already gave you a product promo. What else do you want from us? Yeah. And so of course I end up on stage. I do my rap pitch. People in the crowd are going crazy. I'm getting boos. I'm getting cheers. It was all a blur. But ultimately, all the organizers all the organizers of the event see it. The same people that rejected me are like, oh, that was amazing. And now, they're introducing me to Diddy's COO and the sponsors of this event was AT&T. They're introducing me to them. And now all these connections are being made. I'm getting backstage and I'm doing this and I'm doing that. I actually get to see and meet Diddy. And, we're going through all these things. And, I'm like, wow, look at what's happening here. Like you can just feel like the vibration and the momentum in the air. Yeah. Stuff's just happening. And like, I remember my adrenaline was pumping just like so fast that I had gotten back to like the VIP and I saw DJ Khaled and all these people and I'm like drinking because the drinks are free and I'm like not feeling anything. And it was just because so much adrenaline had just like flushed into my body because all these things were happening. And I have this great event. I'm like, all right, I'm gonna get Diddy to invest. I just gotta follow up. And when I tell you I had everybody's phone number at that event that I could possibly get,
Wow.
I had the CEO, the COO, the chief of staff. I even had Diddy's hairstylist number. I still got it in my phone. I said, I'm gonna have everybody's number. I'm calling everybody until I get what I need. And that's what I did. I called every other day until finally I think they were just annoyed with me. And his staff called me up. It's like, all right, Akeem, we're gonna order 500 Flipstiks, and come out to LA. We're having another event. We want you to give them away at the event. We're gonna let you pitch for $10,000 and da da da.
Wow.
And so ended up going out to that event. Oh, and let me back up a little bit. Or actually, no, I'll keep going. So I ended up going out to that event. And I'm gonna glaze over this story. This is another story, but I know we only have so much time. But at that event, I pitched. I didn't win. I lost to this sweet little 13-year-old girl who sold hot sauce. She's amazing.
Oh, wow.
Even though at first I thought I was going to win, but then as soon as she said she was 13, I said, it's a wrap.
Yeah.
And she deserved it too. But it was one of those things again where I'm like, I know that there's something big meant for me here. And the short version of it is Snoop Dogg was on stage. I made custom Flipstiks for Snoop, and he saw the Flipstick on the wall and he starts going nuts. So I ended up meeting Snoop and giving him Flipstiks, and all these things started happening. And what ended up becoming of all this is in 2019. This is October of 2019. What ended up coming of all this is a few months later, one of the judges for the pitch competition in Atlanta, which I never actually pitched for,
right,
he ended up being a casting director for Shark Tank. And so he sent me a DM on Instagram, and it's like February 2020, right before the pandemic. He's like, hey, I'm gonna be in Kansas City in 2 days. So be there so you can audition for Shark Tank. And that's exactly what I did. I drove overnight to Kansas City and did my pitch. And a couple weeks later, they're like, great, you're gonna be on the show. And it's just like, who would have thought that, the crazy idea to rap, my pitch to Diddy would end up getting me on Shark Tank. And really when they heard all the stories, because this guy talks to the Diddy organization, he's hearing all these crazy things about this kid who rapped his way on the stage in Atlanta. And then he's like, got Snoop Dogg into the product in LA. And so, he's telling the guys at Shark Tank, like, oh yeah, we got to get this guy. And it was just, this incredible evidence that, man, you can make anything happen. Believe in yourself. I mean, it's crazy. So that is the very long version of how I ended up on Shark Tank.
But I think that to me is more inspiring than people who are like, yeah, I auditioned and I had all my books together and I did this and I did that. Like there are alternatives to following, that straight line to get somewhere. So I feel like that's more inspiring to me. I mean, and just the fact that you put yourself out there.
Absolutely. And the thing is, like, there's no one that's successful that can take that straight line all the way to success, right? It's always forward and backwards and up and down and squiggly. And, that's just what it is. And the sooner if you can accept that and you realize, oh, that's normal. It's not that, I'm failing. This is not going right. Or, this is a downturn. No, it's like, that's all part of the journey. Like it's more so about the journey than it is about getting to that finish line of success. When you realize that, you can take everything kind of in stride and realize that, opportunity is always right around the corner.
Absolutely. Yep. That's so true. And, when you were on Shark Tank, you did your rap.
Yeah. They were like, well, Diddy got a rap. We have to get a rap. So,
so how did your actual pitch go to them?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, I mean, it was great. I'm going to spoil it too much for those people who may want to go watch it. You can check it out. It's on YouTube.
Yeah, go find it.
Places. But it was amazing. It was one of the highlight experiences of my life for sure. Just, starting from just an idea, and kiosk in the mall to then being on national television in front of, people who I grew up watching, on TV and being like, wow, this is really cool that you could pitch your idea and get an investment and you make tons of money. It was just a really surreal moment. And it was just awesome. I had so much fun. It was incredibly nerve-wracking, as you can imagine. I thought my heart was going to beat out my chest. I said, this must be what a heart attack feels like. I can't breathe. But when those doors opened, my music started playing, and I just went for it.
Yeah.
And, we got offers from both Kevin O'Leary as well as Lori, and we ended up taking Lori's offer, who's exactly who I went into the tank wanting to get an offer from. And I'll tell you, someone actually pointed this out as something I do, and I didn't realize I knew I did it, but I didn't realize I didn't realize it was something worth sharing. Mm-hmm. But one thing that I do, particularly before important meetings, is I always research the person that I want to create like a meaningful connection with.
Yeah.
And not just like, oh, who are they, what they do, so I know their background, but like, I want to know how they speak, how they talk, like what they're into, like what their beliefs are. Because I remember when I first got started with Flipstik, I met this guy who seemed like he could be someone that could help me. Turns out he was a con artist. Oh. But he taught me a very valuable lesson. I didn't get conned by him because someone else told me, oh, yeah, that guy's a con artist. But what he taught me was, he was like, you see, he said this to me while he was talking to me. He's talking and he's saying all the right things. And I'm like, oh, man, this guy's like, this is the real deal. Like, I need to work with this guy. And he told me, he's like, you know what I'm doing right now? I said, what? He's like, this is called programming. And he was like, programming is when you speak in somebody else's language and the terms and the beliefs that they have, so they feel comfortable with you and they feel like they know you and that you know them.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. And I didn't think much of it at the time. But then my dad actually ended up telling me, oh, I went to high school with that guy. He's a total con artist. Damn. But he taught me a valuable lesson about how to meet people and influence them. And so prior to going on the show, I read Lori's book, I listened to her Instagram pages, and I knew the way she used language, and I knew the things that bothered her and didn't bother her, so that when we were having those conversations in the tank, mm-hmm. I could make that meaningful connection where she felt connected, where it was like, there's something about this guy that reminds me of myself.
Yeah.
Or reminds me of my ex or my father or my brother or sister or whatever. And I think that's a very powerful tool. Programming. Con artists use it all the time, but good. Use it for good. But that was a great experience on the show, and even after the show, I mean, we just got a huge boost in sales, and it still pays dividends to this day. Just not just from the sales that we get from it, but just from the validation that it gave our business. Because especially being a Black-owned business, small mm-hmm. Black-owned business, a lot of times people are like, "Oh yeah, that's cute." Right. But when you do something like that, people tend to take notice, and they take you much more seriously when you get on the phone.
That's awesome. Now, do you think that Shark Tank got you into Target, or was that more of just you putting your foot down and just pedal to the metal, let's go?
It was both, honestly. So, everything since Shark Tank has helped make happen, right? Yeah. But it did not happen just because we went on Shark Tank, Okay. So, for example, with the Target opportunity, it was not like, oh, we saw you on Shark Tank, we want you in Target. It was more of, it was almost a year after Shark Tank that we even got the opportunity. But what essentially happened was I participated in what's called the University of Missouri St. Louis Diversity Accelerator, which essentially is an accelerator for Black and Brown and diverse and women-owned, like, diverse businesses. Mm-hmm. And so, I recommend anyone who's an entrepreneur or wants to be an entrepreneur, is interested in entrepreneurship or startups, to get into these accelerators and pitch competitions, because they're essentially free money. They're free, dilution-free grants. And some of them are $500 and some of them are $50,000 or $100,000.
Yeah.
And we did this program. We got $50,000. It's a great program to be a part of. But one of the biggest benefits that came from it is I met a mentor named Dan Lauer, and he had run a very successful consumer brand in the past, and he had a lot of connections that he could make. And so he made one of those connections to a company out of Minnesota that was a big major Target distributor. They sold a lot of products into Target, over like 300 products. And they're the ones that got that meeting set up with Target. And around the same time, since 2018, I volunteered with Big Brothers Big Sisters of America. And I had went to an event for them to teach kids how to get their first jobs. And Target was supposed to be there, like the local Target store manager of a local store. But instead, they sent all of these like corporate executives.
Oh, wow.
And so they got to hear my story there, and I got to meet them, and I got their contact information. So all these things started to like coalesce around the same time. And for those who are into their spirituality, they'll know that is synchronicity, when things just start to sync up. And that's when you know, like, you got a blessing coming. You got to keep your eyes open, because it's something's coming together. And so around this time, all these things start coming together. These connections are being made. And so by the time we had our meeting with Target, she had heard my name from like 3 or 4 of her colleagues, who had met me through other things. And it was pretty much just a one call close, as we like to say in the business, which is like, you call them up, you have a phone conversation. They're like, great, we'll take it. Absolutely being on Shark Tank and being able to send that video ahead of time helped, but also being a part of Big Brother Big Sister and meeting those people helped, and having those conversations helped, and being a part of the accelerator program helped. It was all these things that came together that ultimately led to that success.
Yes. And what I'm hearing from you is that you really, if you are serious about your business, regardless of if you have a product or a service or whatever, you have to put yourself out there.
Got to.
Can't be afraid that you're going to fail, or that, you're not going to be accepted. You have to put yourself out there, because you just never know what's going to come out of it.
Look, the biggest thing that stops people, from being successful is fear. Yeah. Like, it's not that it didn't work. It's not that you didn't have enough money. It's almost always fear. Like, it cripples you from being able to take the chances and the risks that you need to take when the opportunity is right. Yeah. And, as I mentioned, a lot of times when things start happening for me, it's like, oh, wait a minute, there's some signs here. This is happening, and this is happening, and this is happening. I need to take a big swing. Yeah. I need to take a big risk here, because there's huge opportunity on the table. And it's not that it's going to come easy, but it's that if I put all my energy and effort to it, like, the universe will allow it to come to fruition for me, because I'm reaching for it. So can't let fear stop me.
No, that's awesome. And I don't even know you, but I am so proud of you. Like, just hearing like the way that you started, it really does make me proud, because, I have a lot of family members whose school is just not for them. And, just because school was for me, which who knows if it really was or not. I just went because I didn't know what else to do at the time. But I really want them to understand that, like you said, there's not always a straight path. No one is ever going to have a straight path. I'm an educator right now. That was not what I went to school for. So even my path was not straight. Going to school, I kind of wasted 4 years, to be honest, because then I went to school.
I wish that was something that someone told me going into it, was that, the degree you get in school does not necessarily mean the thing you're going to do in life. No. But when you're a kid, you're like, oh, wow, whatever I choose now, what I'm stuck with. And then you start meeting people in the real world, and they have degrees in all kinds of stuff, and they're doing something completely different. And, I think that for some, I think our culture has made school and learning the same thing. And it's like, no, it's important that you must learn. In order to succeed in anything, you have to learn. But the way you learn and where you learn is going to be different. I learned a lot of my stuff from YouTube. Like, as I said, I wrote my own patent. I wrote my own trademark. I wanted to save money. I taught myself to do graphic design, video editing, all kinds of stuff. I learned reading contracts, all that stuff. I just taught myself. I learned through the internet. Yeah. And, for some people that works, and some people are like, no, I'm going to be much better in a classroom with somebody giving me direction. So everybody is different. But I think that, it is important for us to accept that as long as you're learning, that's the important thing.
Mm-hmm. And making those connections. I mean, even people with degrees don't always get the jobs they want because they don't put themselves out there,
Right.
They don't join organizations that align with the field that they're in. They don't go to, you went to these accelerator
Right.
programs and pitch competitions, but those mixers and stuff like that for different businesses are out there too.
Right.
You don't necessarily, you're not trying to get money, but you're trying to network and meet people in the business that you want to be in. So,
And listen, it's all about who you know.
mhm,
Like
absolutely.
when we talk about like the target thing, yes, all the other things we did were important, but if it wasn't for me having met the mentor who could make a phone call to someone who, sold a lot of stuff into Target, who then sets up the call with Target, and they're like, hey, we know these guys are serious. They sell a lot of products in our
Yeah.
stores. Like they're worth having a conversation to. It all lends to that credibility so that when you get on that phone call, there's less convincing that you
Mhm.
have to do. And so it's all about who you know. Like recently, we're working on new products.
Okay.
So we're working on some new products, and I needed a designer, like an industrial designer. And I was looking online for some folks, but I ended up getting introduced to someone locally here in St. Louis. And I went to their website, and it was kind of old, and I'm like, I don't know these guys. I don't know
Yeah.
if they're really good. But mentors like, hey, you need to go talk to them. They're the real deal. So I went to go talk to them. You walk in their office, and then you see like products from Gatorade and products from Heinz Ketchup and products from Microsoft and Motorola and Harry's Razors and all these major Fortune 500 companies. And then you're like, oh yeah, you remember the blah 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 blah? Yeah, we designed that. And you're like, oh, you remember da 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 da? Oh yeah, we designed that. You remember the whole line of this? Oh yeah, we designed that. It's like, have you used an electric toothbrush? Was it made by this person? Oh yeah, we designed all their toothbrush. Like they just kept going, and it was just like, whoa. And then they tell you how much they charge those people, and you're like, whoa, I should be. And we ended up having this company design our new products for us.
Yeah.
And like that never would have happened with me Google searching, and maybe I would have came across them, which I hadn't, but
Right.
maybe I would have come across them. But even then, like if they hadn't come to a personal connection, to be honest, my projects are not worth their time or their money when you have big major Fortune 500 companies paying you hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Yeah.
So but we were able to get that. Why? Because of the connections that, I've made to where it was a phone call from someone that mattered to them. And so therefore, they treat you differently. So
Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. I think that the number one biggest difference in the last year for us post Shark Tank has been the amount of connections I've been able to make. And that's made a world of difference.
That's awesome. So going forward, you don't have to give us specifics, but where do you want to see Flipstik go within the next couple of years?
Yeah, honestly, we want to really blow this thing up. So we've been raising money currently at a $5 million valuation, which is a pretty big deal because a year ago when we were on Shark Tank, we were at a $500,000 valuation.
Wow.
So yeah, a huge, 10x increase over the course of a
Yeah.
year. And we've raised a good amount of money at that valuation, but we want to grow it another 10x. So I'd like in the next 2 years for us to be a $50 million business.
Wow.
For sure.
That's awesome.
And I think we'll get there because, our the core of what we believe is that we want to make products for the creator in you, the creator in everyone, right? Everyone right now is creating content. Over 56% of all people under the age of 24 make content for a broad audience. So not for friends and family,
right?
Like for strangers. And we know that's only going to continue to grow. And so we want to make those bridge products and say, hey, we know you got your phone, we know you got the app on your phone, but what kind of products can we make for the casual creator, not professionals, but for the casual creator that just makes it easier for you to create that TikTok or that Instagram reel, when you're out with your friends or you're on a vacation or whatever have you. Like, what can we do to make that process easier and more seamless? And if we focus on that, I think we'll get to that $50 million valuation.
Absolutely. I see it for sure. And, looking at your Instagram, I mean, your personality is just very inviting. So, if someone were to scroll and just happen to see, a video of you, they're going to stop because you're very engaging on your videos. So that is good marketing in itself.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate that.
You're welcome. So before we wrap up, I like to ask my guests, the podcast is called The Color of Influence, but who has influenced you along this journey with the Flipstik?
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Man, a lot of people have influenced me on this journey. I'm trying to see if I could have just one. It needs to be a person.
It does not. So whatever you want to discuss, I mean, it doesn't have to just be one. It could be a couple of things that, kind of come to your mind. Just roll with it.
Okay. So honestly, one of the biggest influences that I go back to is I'm actually going to give two books, not two people. Okay. So the first book is called The Alchemist. Alchemist is a great book. It sounds like you know it. Paulo Coelho, I'm probably butchered his name.
I know.
It's about without spoiling it, it's about a boy who's on this journey to find his treasure. And early on in his journey, he meets a wise man that tells him, like, hey, you need to look out for omens. And these omens are things that you'll see and hear and taste and touch. They're going to give you directions on which way you need to go next. And I read this book after it hunted me down. I got a copy from my boss when I quit the job at Square, and then I lost that copy, and then another copy just randomly turned up to my house. And anyway, I ended up reading the book because it scared me. I thought it was like hunted, and I read it, and it just opened my eyes to this concept of, wow, there's these omens, and if I pay attention to them, the journey will be made that much easier. I know what to do next. And whether it's Target or Shark Tank or Diddy or Snoop or any of those things, is always following the omens. Oh, what did I hear? Oh, did I just pick up on a conversation here? Did I see something? Was I watching something? Was I listening to some music and I heard some lyrics for the first time a certain way? Like, I'm always trying to keep my mind clear for omens or signs that will help me take the next step I need to take. So that's number one, The Alchemist, highly recommend. And the other one is a book called Think and Grow Rich. And this book is over 100 years old, I believe now. And it is basically a book where a man interviewed titans of industry during his time. So these are people, and it's old book. So it's like people like Henry Ford, JP Morgan, like the founders of like Standard Oil, like all these billionaires before they were billionaires, like these are like huge titans of industry. And what it did for me is it took the concepts of The Alchemist, which is much more of like spiritual and like feel good and emotional type of stuff. And it said, oh no, this is not like just, all spiritual foo-foo. No, like real cutthroat business, successful people. It's what they're all doing. It's what they already do. And it really just made it extremely practical to say like, yo, this is how really wealthy people get really wealthy. It's like they believe it up here, they believe it in here, and they follow these signs in order for them to be able to get to where they're going. So, it was those are the two big influences that I would say helped me.
Yeah, and those are two good books. A lot of times I think too, people feel that they have to read books that are geared toward what they want to do. And that's not always the case. You don't need to read a book by someone who's doing what you want to do. Sometimes just that general change in the way you think about things, your mindset, being mindful about things, those are just as important as learning the business side of what you want to do.
Absolutely. I remember I read a book. I read the biography of Richard Branson. It was like a British billionaire, and he does stuff like music and lifestyle brands like airplanes and stuff. And that's not what I'm doing. But I was like, man, how did this high school dropout start an airline and get Janet Jackson on his label? And what was he doing? And so, you go and you read the book because you're like, wow, he figured something out.
Mm-hmm.
So, and if he could figure it out, I could probably do it too.
Yeah.
So no, I agree wholeheartedly. Like, absolutely reading books that, you're just kind of guided to, or people tell you about, or you hear about a couple times, like it's probably worth checking out.
Absolutely. Well, Akeem, this was such a great conversation. I really enjoyed learning the backstory behind the Flipstik. It's easy to go online and Google someone, but you really don't know their full story unless they tell it. And that is the whole purpose of my podcast. I'm so glad that you agreed to be on. I'm excited for people to hear.
You had me.
Yeah. And it's funny because, you talk about being uncomfortable. Like for a while, I would only invite people that I knew or that knew someone that knew someone. So you were my first stranger that I don't know through someone. Technically, I kind of do because Marissa was on. So she kind of promoted your product, but you are technically the first person that I just like cold emailed and accepted. So thank you for that. I really, really appreciate that. You boosted my confidence that, that you accepted. So I really, really appreciate that.
Absolutely. Well, look, I'm always grateful for the opportunity to share my story, and I'm grateful for your thoughtful questions. And, I think that what you're doing of, having people that have had some type of influence in their life, whether little or small, and sharing that with the even greater group of people, I think it's great, because I think all of us have that influence ability inside of us, and all of us are making an impact on the world, whether we know it or not. Exactly. A legacy that we're leaving behind. And the more we share like these positive stories, the more I think it'll inspire others to make sure that they're leaving their influence on the world, which ultimately will just make it a better place for us all.
Oh my goodness, absolutely. And I really think that your story is going to inspire a lot of people because, like I said, I know so many people who have ideas and they're afraid to step out of their comfort zone to make it happen. And just all the twists and turns that your story made before you even got to, selling at Target or being on Shark Tank, to me is inspirational. Like even from what I'm doing with my podcast, just stepping out and putting myself out there. I mean, something is going to stick, just like the Flipstik.
Something is going to stick. That's
yes. So again, I really appreciate this. Before we go, please tell everyone where they can find your Flipstiks and make their purchase. Guys, you will not regret making this purchase.
Yeah, absolutely. So they can find us on Target.com, as you mentioned, on Amazon, and on our own website through Google. All you want to do is search Flipstik, but it's spelled Flipstik. So no C in stick. Just give Flipstik a search and we should pop right up. And feel free to buy from any of those platforms. All comes to the same place. And I will also say, if you like the product and you enjoy it, or even if you just enjoy this conversation, feel free to leave a review as well. Review the lifeblood of small businesses online. So leaving those with every review makes a huge impact for us. So much appreciated.
I'm glad you said that because I need to go do my own.
Make sure you leave a review for the podcast too. You got to get a review schedule.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Again, thank you so much. I cannot wait to see what your next product is. Your Instagram is just Flipstik?
It's at Get Flipstik. So at GETFLIPSTIK. So at Get
So everybody go follow so that you can also know what is up next for Flipstik.
Yes.
I'm going to be all on that Instagram page just so that I can be the first person to know what it is and go and promote it.
Awesome. Well, I hope we get to do this again when we got we get even bigger. We got even more stuff going on.
Exactly. Sounds good. Awesome. Have a good one.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. And that's a wrap on another amazing episode. I know that you were just as inspired as I was after listening to that conversation. And to let us know how we're doing, don't forget to leave us a review, like, share, and subscribe to the podcast. You can also follow us on all social media platforms, from YouTube to Facebook, at The Color of Influence, and on Instagram, the_color_of_influence. You can check out all of our episodes and additional content on our website, thecolorofinfluence.com, and that's an N only for influence. And don't forget to share the podcast with someone you know, and have them share the podcast with someone they know. Thank you all for listening. Until next time, peace out.